Oh, the audio stopped.
Oh no, it stopped. Play again. All right, we'll just stop it. What's up?
We'll get it right one of these times.
I know eventually. Gosh, I mean, like at least I heard it this time. I didn't hear it last time. Oh, there it is again.
There.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up, man?
My schedule is it's been insane. Just in the last couple of days now.
Sounds like it.
But trying to like wrap everything up for vacation and then a bunch of like work stuff because I want to like wrap up all my major work tasks before I left.
Right.
And yeah, so they last night I required like an overnight, so I worked from I want to say from around 10 till about 5 this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then went back, got a little bit of sleep, went back in, came home, took a nap, woke up to do this podcast.
So what you're telling me is because you don't have an overnight tonight, you could have woken up like 3 hours ago, watched the second arc of Clone Wars. We could have pushed this back an hour, and then we could have talked about the first two arcs, not just the first arc of Clone Wars.
I could have, but
well, way to plan ahead, Seth. Jeez,
I planned it out perfectly because what would an episode of the podcast be without you being a little bit upset about me, upset with me about something?
Well, you finished the first arc of 3, and
I did. I finished
I really want to talk to you about it. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the show. We got to get a couple other things out of the way first.
Yeah, there's been some stuff going on today.
There's been some stuff. So let's jump into. Can I get it to the right screen? Can I maybe get it to the right screen? We're going to talk about Gone with the Wind. And that is not Gone with the Wind.
I was gonna say, I was like, wait a minute.
That's Gone with the Wind. Do you know? Yeah, they did this. I think DC Covers did this. Do you notice that? That was kind of cool. I was looking Gone with the Wind, and this kept on coming up, and I'm like,
I mean, there's back when Superman, all that. I don't know. Was Superman a comic in print around when like Gone with the Wind was still popular?
Let's see. Gone with the Wind was 1939. That's when Batman started, and Superman was before Batman, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, there you go. Superman pop culture reference back in those days. Makes perfect sense.
Started in 1938, so the year before. Yeah. So, what do we have to talk about Gone with the Wind about? Yeah.
Well, if you ask somebody who's still a super huge fan of the movie, I'm sure they're going to tell you, well, this was back in like it was a different time back then. Like, yeah,
my Facebook has been blowing up with that.
It was more racist back then. Like it was more openly racist back then.
Well, this is heralded as, you know, one of the most classic movies of all time, one of the most expensive movies of all time. And grossing wise, if you
one of the most expensive, I'm sure that's relative to the time period that it was in.
And when they do tickets, if you include tickets inflation, you know, over period, they're saying that Gone with the Wind is still one of the highest grossing movies of all time. You know, if you just compare straight dollars to dollars without inflating the ticket, then of course not. But it made a lot of money for its time. It's a big movie. So HBO took it off of their site, and it blew up on social media. People were like, how dare they? This is historical. You know, what are they going to take down everything? This is ridiculous. It's like they didn't even read the statement from Warner Media. They just said, you know, and most outlets didn't even put that in the title or anything, you know, and to hint what it was about. They just said HBO removes Gone with the Wind for racism or whatever. And it took me, when I first heard about this and I started looking up, it took me like 6 different articles to find the actual statement. Like most articles would not even print the whole statement, which is only one paragraph. And it was like they just wanted to fuel the hysteria.
That's becoming all too common though. Like that doesn't shock me at all. I mean, if you're not the first to get there with a story, you've got to take some hard stance on it, one direction or the other. So
Sure,
that's
but I mean, like, it shouldn't be that hard to find the statement within an hour of
no,
it coming out. Like,
no.
unless you're purposely trying to avoid people from reading the whole thing, because that's just what it felt like. Like, too many of them would include like a sentence here and then a sentence there. And I was like, I'm pretty sure the statement isn't 2 pages. Just show me the whole statement. Um, so this is the whole statement from Warner Media, I believe. It's not directly from HBO Max; it's from the parent company. But this is what they said. They said, "Gone with the Wind is a product of its time and depicts some of the ethnic and racial prejudices that have, unfortunately, been commonplace in American society. These racist depictions were wrong then and are wrong today, and we felt that to keep this title up without an explanation and a denouncement of those depictions would be irresponsible. These depictions are certainly counter to Warner Media's values, and so when we return it to film, when we return the film to HBO Max, did you hear that? They're going to return the film to HBO
Yep.
Max. It will return with a discussion of its historical context and a denouncement of those very depictions, but will be presented, and for all those who weren't paying attention, will be presented as it was originally created, because to do so otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. If we are to create a more just, equitable, and, and inclusive future, we must first acknowledge and understand our history. So, to everybody that was saying HBO is going to censor Gone with the Wind, that is not the case at all.
So this is this is a surprisingly strong move that they're making. So a lot of the time, unfortunately, with the outrage culture that we live in and the cancel culture, they don't want to see that stuff at all. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they want to get rid of it. Like another story that I pulled up here, it's partially related. It's also related to some of the stuff that we're also going to talk about. Uh, this is from Twitter. Nancy Pelosi calls for the immediate removal of 11 statues of Confederate soldiers from U.S. Capitol. Now, when people were hearing, "Oh, we're going to get rid of history, we're going to get rid of those statues," they're like, yes, if that was all they were doing, if they were just getting rid of them and chucking them away, or taking this movie down and just trying to pretend that it didn't exist because there were racist tropes in it, or references to a time where we were not, where America was not on the moral high ground that it at least tries to pretend that it is right now. It's still not, but
Mm.
um, I don't. And a lot of the time they're saying, "Well, you're erasing history." Technically, yeah, that would be true if you were just taking it away, pretending that it didn't happen. As far as all that stuff goes, I think it would belong in a museum and like keep the historical context there, which is really good that they're doing this here and explaining like, hey, uh, I mean, even if it's as simple as something that plays right before the video that says, hey, the fuckers who made this might be kind of dickheads a little bit, uh, and are
Well, I
definitely
mean,
racist to a certain extreme. So
yeah.
know that going into this movie. Here's Gone with the Wind.
Well,
Um,
and I'm pretty sure that's what it'll be. I doubt they're going to film a documentary and put it and let
no,
force you to
no.
watch a 20-minute documentary. But
So
I
it was
mean,
kind of like when 13 Reasons Why got all the crap that it did about how
mm,
like the teen suicide rate spiked. Well, now I still haven't seen the show,
hmm,
but Cece watched it and she says that beforehand, and she showed me one of them before the episodes. I don't know if it's before every episode, so don't quote me on that. But before the show, it actually has like a discussion, like, "Hey, this show
yeah,
talks about suicide. If you need help, go get help." Like,
trigger warning
it's
type thing,
well,
and
yeah, you can say that it's a trigger warning to an extent, but also you're dealing with an impressionable generation. You don't want
yeah.
them to like, and honestly, from the explanation that I have been given of that show, it sounds like it really is glorifying suicide as a revenge tactic.
Oh, it
Um,
definitely, yeah. That's what it was
which,
getting a lot of shit for.
yeah, just the way that it's explained
Yeah.
through several different outlets. So you don't want them to walk into you don't want somebody to come into HBO Max, turn on Gone with the Wind, find out how it was a product of its time, and it was, I won't say accurate to the time period, obviously, but some of
Mhm.
the mannerisms definitely are, and you don't want them to associate HBO's like it's like the beginnings of a lot of different shows on any other network. The following program does not represent the values or thoughts of HBO
Right.
or this program or whatever it is. Like it's a simple, you can call it a trigger warning and get upset about it if they want, but
Right.
that's not the case. It's like, hey, and especially the fact that they're not censoring any of it. They're like, hey, uh
Well,
we like there are some things in American history, especially in the world of entertainment,
mhm.
where like we can't forget about it. Like
Right.
you need to know that it was there so you can be like, hey, yeah, um this is how it was. We were not always perfect. It needs
Right.
to be that learning moment. It needs to be
I
a learning situation.
I mean, yeah, because they could have easily gone down the road of Disney Plus. When
Yeah.
Disney Plus came out, there's a lot of those early Disney shorts that will never see the light of day. And
They're in that Disney vault for good.
they're in that, yeah, they're 10 feet under the ground of that Disney vault. But Gone with the Wind was a significant part of Hollywood history. It won what, eight Oscars. It's a big thing, and there were
For the
parts of it to praise as well. I mean, uh, Hattie McDaniels was the first African American person, woman, man at all to win an Oscar, and it was for this movie. She won it for Best Supporting. Um, did they have the classification of it? Was it Best Supporting Actress back then or not? Let's see. Best
I'm
Supporting.
I'm looking
It
right now
was.
as
There
well.
was. Yes. Best Supporting Actress. Hattie McDaniel. She won. And that is to be praised. But I mean, this movie before it even came out had a lot of controversy behind it because it's based on a book, it's based on a very well known tale.
I was gonna say
Um,
let's give some context real quick, because I know that there's going to be a lot in our audience who haven't seen this film.
so,
Unfortunately, I had to watch it as a kid. It is a 1939 American epic historical romance film adapted from the 1936 novel by Margaret Mitchell.
mhm,
Um, Epic Civil War drama focuses on the life of petulant Southern belle Scarlett O'Hara, starting with her
mhm,
idyllic on a sprawling plantation.
mhm,
The film traces her survival through the tragic history of the South during the Civil War and Reconstruction, and her tangled love affairs with Ashley Wilkes, Leslie Howard, and Rhett Butler.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
I mean, you're dealing with some sensitive topics there. It's
Yeah,
like it's kind of like the depiction that you saw in Django Unchained. Like you've got some plantations owners on there. Their language isn't exactly clean, and
right.
it is not racially friendly in any manner, shape, or form. And
Well, and it's not just that. It's not just that it's not racially friendly because it's based in a time period. They the book before the movie was even made was well known, and many people believe that it glorified the South and made plantation owners not seem as racist. There's a British historian, professor at Cambridge, wrote that the white women are elegant, their menfolk are noble and dashing, and in the background, the black slaves are mostly dutiful and content, clearly
yeah,
incapable of independent existence. So, this movie, it's, he says it reimagined the South during the era of segregation, in which the Southerners are portrayed as defending traditional values. The issue of slavery is largely ignored. Um, any bad black characters are just seen as criminals, and all the non-black characters are just like happy pieces of the family. And there's honorable and defensive roles of the KKK during the Reconstruction period. So a lot of people felt that it was straight up just propaganda. And in fact, Hattie McDaniels, who was an up and coming singer and actress at the time, got a lot of shit for this role. She fought for this role. There was Eleanor Roosevelt's maid, I believe, was also up for this role. There was a lot of people up for this role. She got it. And she didn't take that flack from anybody. She was just like, you know what, it was going to go to somebody. I'd rather it go to me, and work hard, and it's not a reflection of who I am in real life. But she has a famous line of saying, if I can make $700 a week acting like a maid instead of making $7 a week being an actual maid, then that's the role I'm going to take.
Yeah.
And she, she won for that category. But I mean, like they had the premiere of this film in Atlanta, Georgia. She wasn't allowed to be at the premiere. They did this huge parade. I mean, it was like the Macy's Thanksgiving parade down the street from the airport in Atlanta. She wasn't allowed to be in that parade. She wasn't allowed to be at the premiere because of segregation laws. She wasn't originally allowed to even go to the Oscars, even though she was nominated. And then when she was finally allowed, her and her husband, or whoever her date was given a separate table in the back. She wasn't even allowed to sit with the cast of the most nominated film of that year. And then she had
But
to
she
make the
was in.
long trek from her right. And then when she won, they let her. I'm surprised they even let her go up and do a speech, but she did, and it was a big moment for her, and a big moment for black actors, and everything. But it just, there's that part of it. That's the real life part of it. And then there's part of it, of the story, that even though she said that she was very happy to be in that movie, and even though a lot of people really like that movie, you can't discount the fact of there are story elements in there that tell a different story than what the South was like, and romanticize the South at a very non-romantic period for most of the people that lived in the South. And to try to act like you don't recognize that, um, is worse than addressing it. And again, at least they're addressing it, and they're not censoring it. They're just saying, "Hey, we know, and we just want to make sure you know before you watch it."
Yeah, and honestly, that makes perfect sense. Because that is something that, like, I would take issue with if they were going to pull a Disney and they were going to like censor out parts of it. Because, well, first of all, to censor out the parts that people could get upset about with this movie, you're talking about 95% of the fucking film.
Right,
Like,
right.
because I mean, I'm kind of foggy on the film itself because it has been a while since I saw it. I
Hmm.
saw it when I was still living with my parents because they watched it when they were my age. Well, not my age, but they watched it when they were kids. It
Hmm.
wasn't out at my at their when they were my age, but um it's again, you got to keep that historical context, whether it is good for America, bad for America, whether we need to take a little bit of shame for it. Like that context needs to stay there.
I
Um,
mean, I don't think that the opening message is going to be like, "We want to make sure you feel bad about yourself before you
yeah,
watch
no,
this
it's
film."
not
It's
going to be like that, but
no,
still, like
yeah,
it's a piece of history that's like, hey, it wasn't perfect, but this is what it
right,
was.
right.
Just letting you know,
Just
this
letting
isn't
you know.
exact. We're not in support of this, but it's a part of American film history. I mean, Gone with the Wind is easily a staple of American film history.
Yeah. And to
It's
give you
just
some
is.
context of how old this film is, I mean, we can say 1939 for sure, but Hattie McDaniels,
It's gonna fuck with
her
those blinds. I could see him. He was gonna tear my blinds up.
Hattie McDaniels, her parents were slaves. So she was a direct descendant of actual, like a one generation descendant of actual slaves. It wasn't like her great great grandparents were slaves or something like that.
Yeah,
That's how
her
close
parents.
this film was to what it actually was. I mean, that's
I
crazy,
I
you
also
know.
saw something here that it was a Google question. One of Google's most common questions about the film is, are there any actors from Gone with the Wind still alive? and the only remaining actors, like I've already clicked off of it, but the only remaining actors were in their upper 90s.
Mm. Well,
So,
I mean, I believe it. Yeah, because it's. I
and
mean, yeah, because
like
it's.
so we're dealing with some old fuckers out there.
I mean, this came out in when did it come out in 1939? So
39.
that's yeah. I mean, yeah, it's 2020, and I was looking at they had footage of the parade and of the Atlanta premiere, and they had footage of like state troopers like helping uh, old Confederate, are like Confederate soldiers that were still alive into the premiere. They were allowed to go into the premiere in full uniform. So you had these old guys, just like you see now. Like remnants of World War II. Getting flown over, to celebrate D-Day or something like that. They had they had survivors, soldiers of the Civil War, of the Confederate Army in their Confederate garb, escorting them in to see this movie. And one of the biggest stars in the movie. It's not like, she was a big star. This wasn't. She didn't just have like one line and then she was hanging out in the background. She was a major part of this movie, and
Yep.
she wasn't even allowed to be there. And granted, to their credit, the lead man, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Clark Gable. He actually called bullshit on that. And he protested. Hey, she needs to be here. It's the premiere of the goddamn movie, people. She's a big part of this movie. And Hattie said, don't do this. Just enjoy the premiere. I don't want to mess up the premiere of the movie. And that can be seen as several things. But I'm sure there was a part of her that was like, hey, this is a big deal. I don't want to get blacklisted for causing an uproar. But then,
It might not
it
have
paid
even been
off.
that.
I
It
mean,
might
it
have
could
been
have been a
just as
lot of
simple as
things.
her wanting to like she considered the cast and the crew her friends, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Like they
but it
I mean at least the ones that embraced her. I'm like I'm
yeah.
sure she didn't want to cause a scene, which is
But it's, I mean, I would be livid if I couldn't, if I was a part of that and couldn't be a part of couldn't watch my own movie, But at least they were able to fight the Oscars, and she was allowed in the Oscars, and
well, it was good because she won some.
yeah, she won. And then the next person to win, I don't think was until another 20 years or so. It was a while. So it's a big part of history. It's a big part of cinema history. It's a big part of black actors history, and a lot of people recognize her as leading the charge and as a inspiration. There's a lot of other people that call her not an ally, and that she was part of the problem, which I don't necessarily agree with. She never said that she supported the values of that movie, but she was a person trying to get ahead in Hollywood, and when she accepted it, she said, I hope this is a staple for my career, but also how I represent my race. And it was a big deal, and we don't want to forget about that and censor the whole film, and then we can't celebrate her performance. But yeah, just some context, I think, is
Well,
is called for.
an interesting business move that well, first of all, it's funny. It's kind of funny to me that they didn't think to do this beforehand. So it was up, then they had to remove it, and they're going to add this and then put it back in. But
Well, because I think there was an op-ed. There was a big
yeah,
New York Times op-ed that kind of forced their hand. But at
but
least
it
they
had
were,
a
it was just calling for it to be taken down, and at least they're like, well, we're not going to do that. Let's not be crazy here.
but
But
it hit number one on Amazon bestsellers chart after HBO Max dropped it.
yes,
So
yeah,
um,
of course it did. Of course. Well, because that's what people do. And I know people that like last year, what was it? Not Anne of Green Gables. It was a story about a family that goes out on the prairie. Family on the Prairie books. Little Family on the Prairie books.
Little
Uh,
House on the Prairie.
Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. So there was something about there was a big uproar similar to this about how that had some racist undertones about how they talked about Indians or Native Americans on there, and it was going out of print or something like that. And I knew people that were like rushing to find a copy of the collection because they're like, "You're never going to be able to find it again." And I'm like, "It's not, calm yourself. That's not the case." But yeah, so it's coming back to HBO Max, just edited. But it's part of a bigger discussion of what's gone down the last week because a part of this discussion is that the Marines, the Navy, and NASCAR have all banned the Confederate flag. NASCAR has banned it from it can't be on their cars. It can't be shown or flown at their events. Um, what else? It can't be a part of any part of their production. It says the presence of the Confederate flag at NASCAR events runs contrary to our commitment to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all fans, our competitors, and our industry, bringing people together around a love for racing and the community that it creates is what makes our fans and sports special. The display of the Confederate flag will be prohibited from all NASCAR events and properties. And I feel like just the other day, that NASCAR driver, said the N word on his live gaming broadcast. And that was just kind of swept under the rug real quick. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of it's a big move. And then it's like why did it take so long for this to happen move?
Yeah. So, um, I I heard about this news from seeing somebody who was posting like it was a story on Reddit about a NASCAR driver who was quitting because of this. Um,
Okay.
but it was pretty funny because the guy he's never won any of their races. Um, he his highest pole position. He's never won any races, never made pole position, never had best lap time, and he his best position that he's ever gotten was 33rd out of 40.
So the sport
So
isn't losing a
yeah,
big champion of this.
I mean, honestly, and this guy was the gut reaction. He's like, this is the first one. The NASCAR drivers who are really pushing the sport, they're not going to give a shit. They're not going to give a shit because they're making as much money as they want to regardless. Like
Oh, I think
that.
I found the guy you're talking about, Ray Cicerelli.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
I
him.
found his statement. That's a heck of a statement.
I was gonna butcher his last name, but I gotta see if the tweet was real because let's see if I can find him here.
Yeah, because I see a screenshot of the treat of the treat of the treat of the tweet. I can't talk. Yeah, you can never trust screenshots, guys. I mean, you gotta try to actually find it.
Oh, there's a bunch of them out there right now. See, he doesn't have a Twitter account, so I'm pretty sure it was fake. But
Well, this is a CBS Sports that's saying it's official, so he could have taken it down. This one says it's a Facebook post from him.
okay, that
Um,
makes sense.
yep, this is
Um,
an official Facebook post. Yeah.
so yeah, this is the NASCAR one. I don't give quite as much of a shit about, but the military, this one's important because it's also very interesting because Confederate soldiers under U.S. law are actually considered veterans. They're actually considered United States veterans, which creates kind of a weird. There was a really weird argument that that honestly I was just popcorning. It was going on Facebook. I'm just watching this drama unfold, and we had a couple people who were arguing about. It was like, well, if you're disrespecting Confederate soldiers, you're disrespecting veterans, which is
I
not
don't
the
think that's the
case.
case. No,
It's
you're
not the
just
case.
not. You're. That's not. I mean, Guess what? There's a flag for veterans.
Yeah,
There is a veterans flag, guys. You wanna throw something as a veteran myself. I know that there's a veterans flag, so you
the
could just
the
put that up.
the Confederacy was literally a group of traitors. Like they were trying to leave the United States. They did not want to be a part of the United States. They wanted to be the Confederate States of America. They had their own laws written out. They had all their own plans. Slavery was a big part of them,
Yeah, and
if not the main part. This is a flag that represents a losing faction of a civil war where American citizens killed American citizens because they didn't want to be American citizens anymore because they couldn't own other American citizens.
I
Like,
mean, to people like Ray that said in his thing, I don't believe in kneeling during the anthem, nor taking people's rights away to fly whatever flag they love. Okay, so does that include the Nazi flag? Does that include the ISIS flag? Like, I mean, granted, I see the Nazi flag all the time. There's towns in Nebraska here that there people
I've
put
seen the
that out
ISIS
on their
flag
front
here in
yard.
town.
I
Like,
saw the Confederate flag across the river on my drive back from a job today. So, I mean, people,
see, this
it's
is this is the
they
argument with
lost.
like freedom of speech. Like people always say is like it's my right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression. NASCAR is not, it's not out in the public eye. Like this is a corporation.
Yeah,
It is a
and
it is a
this
private
is
corporation. They can do what they want.
right. And
Like
this isn't, again, this isn't coming from, this isn't saying that citizens can't do it in their own front lawn, but it's saying
no,
NASCAR doesn't
you're
want it
still
at
a
their events.
dickhead, but you can do it on your front
Right.
lawn if you
And
want.
the military, the United States military, doesn't want their military members flying the flag of an army that the United States military beat. They don't, you know, it'd be like if it would be like if World War II soldiers put a bumper sticker on their truck back in, you know, the 50s and the 60s with a Nazi flag on there and just said, "Hey man, you know, that's just me. I know we defeated him, but you know,
Like
uh,
my family was in Germany and they fought to, this is
yeah,
part of my heritage. But like, do you want it to be? Like
yeah."
really? Like is that what you
I
were
have
arguing for?
talked to a lot of people about this lately because it's been all over the news, and I won't say who their name is, but one of the arguments that was brought up was that, you know, to everybody that fought in the Confederate army weren't slave owners. And I said, yes, I know that. Not every soldier in the Confederacy was a slave owner. But one of the biggest things that the Confederacy was fighting for the right for was a racist concept of slavery. So if you are an individual fighting in an army of racists and you're saying, but I'm not racist, it doesn't really make a difference if
No.
you're there supporting that cause. And his returning argument was, well, just like the General Lee, the Confederate flag is also a symbol of rebellion and being a rebel. And I said, yeah. And what they were rebelling against was a government that said slavery was wrong. So is that really the rebellion you want? And he was like, well, what about fans of the General Lee? Look, I remember watching Dukes of Hazzard as a kid. I thought it was a funny show. I liked it. I liked old shows like that. The problem was the the racists and the slave owners didn't take the flag from the General Lee. Dukes of
No.
Hazzard took the flag from the Confederacy because they knew a large part of their fan base was going to support this. So yes, and you know, in the past decade, you know, you've seen the removal of the flag from the General Lee, and stuff like that. You know, like when the General Lee goes out to certain shows and stuff like that, or replicas of it, you won't always see that flag, and people are calling, "Oh, that's terrible." You know, the problem was is that they knew it back then. They knew that that's what that symbol stood for,
Yep.
and they made that decision. So it's, you know, again, it's recognizing that that wasn't the right thing to do and recognizing why they did it because they knew that they had a heavy southern fan base. And there's a lot of, and just like NASCAR, there's a lot of people are saying there's a heavy southern fan base in NASCAR, and what is this going to do to their fan base? I'm really interested to find out because I think it's going to crush them, but I
Well,
think it's still the right call.
I think it's going to be interesting if the U.S. Bases, military bases that are named after Confederate generals and officers, we'll see if they change their names.
Well,
See if they're
to
going to
your
go away
point
from
about
that. But
those statues, the difference between those statues and the then Gone with the Wind is fiction. There's reasons for it to be celebrated. Again,
yeah,
how many other times do you see a defeated army where the victors keep statues up of their losing army? What else about those statues am I missing? There's people are saying that that's part of our history. Yeah, but I'm not saying erase part of that history. We already have a problem of that in the United States. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know about you, but the things that I've learned about history that I didn't learn in US history is alarming. It's sad that I learned about things like the Tulsa massacre from Watchmen and not from American history class. I mean, there's all kinds of accounts like that. So I am 100% against erasing history, but I am also against celebrating the negative parts of history just because it's history. You can do a museum if you want to. I have seen, a museum of World War II with some Nazi relics, and it's fascinating to me. I love studying World War II. Did that mean that I wanted to take some Nazi things home and put it up on my walls and on my front lawn to celebrate Nazism? Absolutely not. That's different. And I feel like some of those statues were to celebrate the generals of an army that stood for slavery, and I agree that that's not something we should be celebrating anymore. Anymore. We shouldn't have been celebrating in all this time. But I'm glad somebody's coming to their senses. And being a veteran, and being in the military, I knew guys like that. Because people come from all over the United States, down to basic, down to the same base in Texas for basic training, and I met plenty of those guys that were as redneck as they come, and some of them were redneck and racist, and it was clear as day. And it didn't matter if we weren't segregated in the military anymore. They were still pretty blatantly racist, and it was a badge of honor for them, and it shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be.
yeah. Uh, Personally, I think I'm ready for. I threw out a comparison not terribly long ago. I was like, you remember how Taco Bell added the Doritos Locos taco? Like
Hmm.
like it took them forever to come up with the Doritos Loco shell, and everybody was like, "Yeah, this is perfect. Why did it take you so long to figure this out? That this would be a
Hmm.
good idea."
Hmm.
Kind of the same thought around all this shit. Like, oh, we're getting rid of the Confederate flag.
So Jeffrey,
You should have been doing that from the beginning. You should have been doing that from the beginning. Like, come on,
yeah, Jeffrey
move it to the
Miller says,
museum.
yeah,
Absolutely.
not at the center of town. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly. Like, because
right.
when you have those statues or you have those flags out in public, especially in government buildings, or you have them up on a pedestal, you're glorifying those people. When you have them in a museum, you are you're keeping that historical context there. Like,
Hmm.
taking it away from a public area is not erasing history. Removing
Right.
it and destroying it would be.
And
Um,
again, erasing history is, I mean, it's what they always say. If you try to erase your history, then you're bound to repeat the problems of your
yeah,
history. So I am all for remembering and keeping a knowledge of. I think we should be knowledgeable of our history. I just don't think we should celebrate some of the darker parts of our history. Once we start forgetting that America had a dark past and has dark parts to it still, you know, um, then once we start ignoring that, then we stop trying to improve ourselves. And I'm always under the idea that we need to constantly be improving ourselves. And again, it makes way so much sense for the military to be doing this, but it is a big deal for a private company like NASCAR, who many have talked shit about over the years and saying it's a racist sport anyway. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm not a huge NASCAR fan, but even I know that it's got a huge Southern base. And are all Southern people racist? Absolutely not. But I know that this is going to affect a lot of people. So we'll see what happens with that.
Um, yeah, and before we move too terrible on, like I've got like let's do a quick little lightning round of what's trending on Twitter right now.
Okay.
Because I've been wanting to do this for a while now, but today we've actually got like a bunch of stories, and a few of them are actually really good and relevant for us.
Okay.
Um, in kind of relation to what we were just talking about, Lady Antebellum, which is a country band. I'm not familiar with country; is not my genre, so I'm not familiar with that. But
Hmm.
Lady Antebellum changes their name to Lady A, denounces former names association to slavery.
There's
Um,
that Antebellum movie that's supposed to be coming out too. So yeah.
I'm not familiar with antebellum as a reference to slavery or anything like that. But that happened. Are you familiar with this band? Like, you know what?
I've heard of them. I couldn't tell you one song
Okay.
that they sing, but I know their existence.
I think Lady A is kind of a lazy way of changing it because people are still going to associate him with that name. Just change the name. Come up with something else. Tackle Shaft. I don't care. Fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
Like watch Parks and Rec. Andy Dwyer had a shitload of band names that you can borrow from, and they are all gold. Um, in kind of like post-COVID talks, we talked about this in a previous episode, but Disneyland in California sets proposed reopening date for July. On Wednesday, Walt Disney Co. announced plans to begin a phased reopening of its Disneyland resort in Southern California, which I think is what we talked about because they were going to be opening the downtown Disney district, which is like not part of the park. It's kind of like open to the public, but
Right.
it's like still owned by them.
Right.
But Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure Park will be opening July 17th. And Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, Disney's Paradise Pier Hotel, will be opening July 23rd. Thoughts?
How? I mean,
How?
what when you think of Disney parks, what do you think of? What's the
Just
first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Disney parks, Disney rides, Disney whatever?
a clusterfuck of people,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
without question.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Jeffrey
kind of my
Miller could
same
leave
thought.
you
Like, what
now.
are
It's a quarter after one. That is a Lady A song. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. That is one of their songs.
I'm
I recognize
I'm
that
still
now.
not I'm still not familiar. Like, country is not even close to my genre. I
Yeah.
grew up. I listened to it as a kid when I was stuck on the school bus on my way to school because that was what was always
Hmm.
on the radio. But beyond that, no.
But yeah,
Um,
lines, people, Disney. I mean, the lines, then you got like the quick pass to get through the quick, to bypass the lines. I mean, even if they did what every store has been doing and every, Costco with the things on the floor and, doing 6 feet, I can't imagine them letting in more than a quarter of their normal attendance, and then these lines would be just as long just with the 6 feet in between. But like,
so
do they say anything about
yeah,
restricting attendance?
advanced reservations will be required for theme park visitors, and capacity will be limited. Events that draw large crowds, such as parades and nighttime spectaculars, won't return immediately, and Disney characters will be in the parks but not available to meet with visitors. Uh,
Interesting. So what, they'll be behind like a glass shield or something?
no, they'll probably just be like walking around behind like gates or something like that, or be
Does it
like
say anything about
near
if they'll
rides or
be in
something.
masks or something like that? Like,
No, I'm
will the
not seeing
princesses
anything.
be wearing masks?
I'm not seeing anything as far as that requirement goes. But like I said, this is a lightning round. I'm just kind of like dipping into this. So
I
I
heard
didn't
about
find
that. And I
no
think it's crazy, but I mean, I
no
guess if
hugging
they're
Mickey Mouse.
severely restricting people, then yeah.
So Nerdist and like several people here have actually said there's no word if you'll have to wear a mask while you're there.
Mm.
But there's a story. It's from news18.com. I don't. They're verified, but I don't know how reputable they are. But their headline was "No hugging Mickey Mouse, no hiving Donald Duck. Disneyland is going to be a changed experience as it reopens." I was like, well, yeah, everything is a changed experience when it's reopening right now. We're in a pandemic.
Can you
We're on the
imagine how much
hopefully we're on the
cleaning?
tail end. We don't know we're on the tail end of it just yet. We're being
Yeah.
cautious.
Can you imagine like, and it's gonna run slower too if they're cleaning everything. Like you go to a store right now, there's
Oh,
usually somebody cleaning every one of the carts before you even pull the cart out.
yeah.
think about
They're
all the
cleaning, like,
surfaces
the
that people
conveyor belt
touches.
before each visit too.
Right. If I mean the rides, the things, the posts while you're waiting to ride, everything, are they going to clean that every time? Are they going to clean it at all? I mean, there's so much. I get it. Like Disney's like,
Yeah, yeah.
we need to open back up just like everybody else, but
It's like
geez.
we can't bank on, Black Widow making all of our money back for this year.
Although I would say one thing right now, if you are able to go to the Star Wars land or whatever that is, now's the time to do it, because that was the biggest complaint that everybody had when this whatever it was, it's not Star Wars, whatever, opened, was that all the promotional pictures were of these great, great areas, like you could walk around the Falcon and everything, and there was like
You're, like,
10
shoulder to
people.
shoulder with,
Yeah, but then in
with
real
everyone.
life, yeah, you're just like you're bunched in there with everybody. So I guess now's the time to do it, if you want to, if you want to breathe. But yeah, I mean, and I wonder if they're going to limit how long you're in with those reservations, if there's something like a time limit or what.
Probably.
But
Some more,
interesting.
entertainment news. A&E Network said it will cease production on Live PD, and, Cops was actually axed by Paramount. Uh,
Yeah.
the show's faced scrutiny following a report that it had, but no longer retains footage of the death of Javier Ambler, who died in police custody last year. The news comes after Paramount Network's Cops, which also follows on-duty police officer. Who doesn't know Cops? You don't need to explain
I
Cops. Are you
know. I
fucking
know.
kidding me? Was pulled in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. The network later confirmed that it has no plans for the show to return. So, um,
So those are, yeah, cop. They're two
so
slight.
two
They're two different stories, because cops they're just pulling it. And cops, the
Well, they're
one
pulling
time it
both of
was in
them.
Omaha.
Like,
Well, I
both of them
know
are
that,
done.
but they're pulling it for different. Well, there's two different controversies there. One is that cops is canceled, but they're pulling it just to pull it. And they were actually in town, and somebody died while they were
Yeah, it
filming
was one
in
of their.
Omaha.
I think it was one of their. It was one of their sound guys.
There, yeah.
I think
So that was
one of their sound
interesting.
crew,
The first time
got
that
shot.
anybody had died, and it was the first time it'd been in
Yeah, it's
Omaha.
first time in Omaha.
But then
Um,
the other one, the live PD one, isn't just getting pulled for that, but it's the controversy is that there was a death and they don't have that footage, and everybody was like, "Well, why? Are you trying to
well,
cover up?" You know?
I thought that was the thing, is that they had the footage, but then they didn't retain it, which is even worse. They had
Well,
it and then they got rid of it.
well, this is their excuse, and it could be an excuse or it could be a good thing. This is what they said to that. This happened over a year ago. They said as a policy, they did not hold on to footage more than a month after filming, because they didn't want to be used by the law for cases. They said that the goal for that show was to document what was going on, but not to be a tool for the police to use as far as cases and stuff like that. They did not want to be considered an arm of the law, by being a documentarian for them and whatnot. So they had a policy that they would get rid of footage. And they said that as far as this case is concerned, nobody asked for that footage till a year later. And
Yeah,
even though people in the network voiced concerns about the policy and this particular event, they were told we need to stick to policy. So I could see, I commend them for not wanting to be an arm of the law and to keep themselves separate, as documentary, as just a person documenting it, but not like being a tool. But in this case, I feel like somebody, because people were voicing the concern. I feel like somebody should have been like, okay, I know we don't normally hold on to footage, but this happened, and
yeah.
maybe this is important. I'm sure deaths didn't happen that often on the show to where it'd be like,
I would
oh,
hope
this is
not.
just like last Tuesday, just get rid of it like we have before. So I would think somebody should have been like, maybe we should, not to help out the cops, not to be biased, but just in case, because apparently there were a few people that were on the crew that day, and that were part of the editing, that were deeply disturbed by the footage. And I feel like if you're able to recognize that your own people were disturbed by it, that should be enough to say maybe this isn't something we should just delete like we normally do. So it's a good and a bad thing. And but yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting story.
And then I've got two more. We'll be super quick about these next two.
Okay.
But we've got Starbucks is permanently closing 400 stores in North America and 200 in Canada. They expect the pandemic to reduce sales this quarter by as much as 3.2 billion. I've got another one from
I've
Reuters
heard
saying
that. That's so
2.2 billion.
crazy. But in the billion nonetheless. I've heard that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
billions nonetheless. Not closing all of them. I think 400 is what, 10% of their stores, something like that. Like, if that, there's so many of them, it's ridiculous.
But that's a huge loss. But it makes
yeah, no,
sense.
that's big.
I mean, think of all the people that get Starbucks on the way to work, and think of how many people have been working from home. I mean, I'm a big fan of scooters because that's local to us, and I still support scooters when I can. Like, I just got some on the way into work the other day, and they've been open for the most part. But, if you're not driving to work, you're probably not going to Starbucks. If you're not out and about, you're probably not going to Starbucks.
I don't
And
drink coffee, so I didn't care.
and unlike scooters, which is primarily a drive up thing, I would imagine that most of these stores that they're closing probably weren't drive ups, so they're hurting that much more. Like,
yeah,
the people
there's
that
a
are out
mention
can't
in
even
here
go.
that they're moving towards more pickup only
Yeah,
locations,
that makes
which
sense.
makes perfect sense.
But they'll
And then,
recover as soon as people get back to work. They'll recover.
oh yeah, they'll be back up in there. Now is just a time for people to buy more stock, and then they'll be back up
Mm-hmm.
and running in no time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final news, which I was really excited about, because the gamer in me, and we did actually have a mention, Jeffrey Miller. Have you guys talked about the Miles Morales announcement? Not yet, but now we are. Um, so the PS5 got its reveal today, and we also got like a little teaser snippet. I won't call it a teaser because it was really just
That
it
is
was
literally
really
what
short.
teaser is supposed to mean, is a teaser.
Yeah, by today's standards it's not a teaser, but
Yeah.
it's an actual, but this is what a teaser should be.
Right.
So we got the little bit of Miles Morales's Spider-Man game,
God,
which
Jeffrey, you're just commenting on everything. What do you say now? Love coffee and love Starbucks. Want to play something? Yeah, it makes sense.
he's being a part of the conversation. Thank you, Nerf Herder.
Jeffrey, let us talk about your last comment first.
I love coffee and love Starbucks. The one by my place will not close, thankfully. There you go. See,
That's good. That's good.
that's even if it did, there's probably like 4 others inside of like a 2-block radius. So, I mean, you might have been okay.
Yeah.
There's like 3 just around my house. Like
Yeah.
within a 5-minute drive from my house, there's 3 separate ones that CC goes to.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, Miles Morales got announced for his Spider-Man game. Did you play the Spider-Man game at all? Did you
No,
have a
because it was
PS4?
a PlayStation only exclusive game,
Okay.
and that's what I've that's kind of what I've been juggling and waiting
That's
for this
tough.
next. I was tempted to get a PS4 during quarantine, and then I was like, but PS5 is on the horizon. And I still don't know if I'm going PS5 or Xbox, but man, Spider-Man is one of those things that are making me lean towards the PlayStation.
So
But
I'm waiting to see if they have like a downscaled version that they release for the PS4 also, which they've done with some games. I don't know if they'll do that.
And they've announced that they're going to be doing that with several games. That
Yeah.
there will be downscaled. A lot of these things are not PS5 exclusives. They haven't said whether or not this is, but this is exciting that it's a full game and not just like a DLC for Spider-Man. Like
Yeah.
a Miles Morales DLC. It's it's a full game.
Well, he is a reasonably big part of the first game.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so you do have interactions with him in that game.
Interesting. Awesome.
Like he was part of the trailer when they announced when they actually did a demo for the game.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like that
So
was
then it makes
it was
sense that
kind
they
of
could have just made it a DLC, but instead they
it could
made it
have,
into a
but
full
yeah,
game.
I'm glad they
That's awesome.
decided to go with a full game. This is great news. They announced a bunch of different games that are coming out. Last of Us 2 is coming out on PS4, and so I imagine that there'll be a upscaled version going to the PS5.
If
Um,
it makes enough money
yeah,
with all the
Jack and Dax,
controversy around it.
Jack and Daxter is supposedly going to return. I'm waiting for the God of War sequel.
Mm,
Because I imagine that was going to be kind of the game that they're going to hold on to a little bit closer till after the console releases.
mhm,
Uh, because if you've played the most recent God of War game, you know that they've got to keep that thing going because that game did so well.
mhm.
So I'm hoping for more on that. But that is
I
the
saw there
end
was a
of
Horizon Zero Dawn sequel coming too. I saw the trailer
yeah. It
for
was
that.
like New West, or it was like New West or something
Something
like that.
West. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's coming as well. But that's pretty much the end of the Twitter news as
Mhm.
far as what was trending today, at least
We
that I thought was relevant anyway. But
Well,
we've
I'm
got some
glad
more
you do
stuff to
that. We
talk
should
about
do that more
ourselves.
often though. We should do that more often. I like
Well,
talking about that.
that's where I pull my stories from, but a lot of the
Mhm.
time they're not. Most of the time they're not really worth like the full deep conversations that we go into, so we can
Yeah.
just kind of wrap
Little
up a
mini
bunch of them real
snips.
quick.
I dig
But
that.
we got other stuff to talk about today. We've still got a couple more topics to go through.
Yeah.
But we're already at the hour. Do you just want to jump into Clone Wars?
No, this is really short because we've already
Okay.
talked enough about HBO Max. It's just an extension of what we were talking about earlier. But we've said that many
They're
people believe HBO Max is having a rough time with this
I
launch.
mean, they
Uh,
are.
it's
Uh,
it's it's not
they really
launching on things like Roku. It didn't launch in 4K, which I mean, even Hulu has 4K now. It's just so crazy why HBO wouldn't have 4K, especially with some of their titles. One of the big things, and I noticed this, and I'm not going to pull up my HBO Max account again, but when I first did that first time we were looking at it, it had a leaving soon category, which is a part of the HBO Go and HBO Now. But people were like, "Well, this is HBO Max." I mean, this was advertised as Warner Brothers' answer to Disney Plus, where Disney Plus is everything that Disney owns. That is everything that Disney owns that is part of their part of their family oriented stuff is going to be housed at Disney Plus. So Warner Brothers wanted their own version of that, and they weren't necessarily going to stick to the family only thing. They just wanted everything. Hence HBO Max. Well, what is the point if you can't hold on to your own properties? And I know we've talked about licensing things and everything, but there was an article coming out that on July 1st, they're already losing a ton of titles.
yeah.
Like a ton.
Their DC library is getting smoked,
Yeah, I mean, these are,
which
and we
really
we were
sucks.
looking at the DC library when we came on. We were
I was
thinking,
like,
what was the one
we were
you
like
said?
happy.
Yeah.
I was stoked that they were on there. Like they had so many of them, but like I'm looking at the list here. They're losing Batman, Batman Forever, Batman Returns, Batman and Robin,
So
Batman v Superman,
all the
Batman versus
Batman
Superman,
movies.
Dawn of Justice, Catwoman, Jonah Hex, Justice League, the Lego Batman movie, The
Yeah.
Losers, Steel, Suicide Squad. They can
Steel.
lose. They can lose Steel. We're fine with that.
But that was the
Uh,
one we joked about, like, oh my gosh, they even have Steel. Not anymore.
Suicide Squad, Teen Titans Go to the movies, which is
Mhm.
already gone.
It hasn't even
Wonder
been a month.
and then the Wonder Woman animated version and the live action version gone.
All leaving on July 1st, not January 1st, July 1st. They already had movies that they announced that were going to be there at launch, like Man of Steel and the Christopher Nolan Batman
Yep.
movies that ended up not being there. So now they're taking all of the classic Batman movies off. I mean, and that's just the DC list that you're listing. There's plenty of other movies that aren't DC properties that they're losing. And
I
it's like, what is the point? What's the
well
point then?
we kind of had like a weird, like it was sort of weird they were going to be there in the first place because DC had their own streaming service, and I found it
But
kind of weird that they
HBO
had such
owns
an
them, so it might as well be an extension of that. I mean,
sure,
Warner
but
Brothers owns DC, so why compete within yourself? But
sure, but like why would yeah like why would they want to release all of the library like as much as they did on HBO and have it on DC at the same time? You want to incent if like you want to have it be a smart business move, you want to incentivize people having both.
Right.
and but they didn't
Well,
do
I
that.
think
Like, they made it to where you
we've
could have gotten away with one
speculated.
or the other for a while, at
I
least as
think
far as the movie side goes.
we've speculated that they're going to lose, that they're going to cancel DC app anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
they just launched the trailer for Doom Patrol season 2, and did it say a DC app original? No, it said an HBO Max original. So they're already pulling their biggest properties from DC over to HBO Max. So that's not a surprise to me, but and I get it, there's licensing rights and everything. But talk about losing some big properties and a ton of them. I mean, I get that that was happening with HBO Go because you always had, these are the ones you have, these are the ones you don't, you know, and watch them before we lose the licensing rights to another streaming property. But
Yeah.
that's not what HBO Max was supposed to be. This was supposed to be Warner Brothers Library, the one go-to place for Warner Brothers content. It's
Just
not
based
that.
off of the name, you'd think that it'd be max, the maximum, everything.
Yeah.
Um, we got another
Jeff
comment
says,
from Jeffrey. You think
and,
this has been a bait since the contract is done?
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%.
Granted, it's not that great of bait because you didn't have to
No.
do a year membership. You could, you can cancel at any time, which I guarantee you I will be. I'll be picking it right back up as soon as the Zack Snyder cut comes out. But it's so crazy, man. It like, I just don't understand the purpose of it. Like, is HBO Max going to be around by the time the Zack Snyder cut comes out?
So
Because right
so
now they
this
did
is
a shitty launch.
so this is what they should have done. You've already got HBO Go, you've got HBO Amazon channel, you've got whatever the fucking other one is. I can't remember what it is, but there's like 3 different HBO streaming services that you can already get access to. One
Right.
of them I think is exclusively through your cable package, but still.
Yeah.
But this is what they should have done. So their really big announcement around HBO Max came and disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get any excitement out of it because again, it wasn't really anything new. And
Mm-hmm.
then the Snyder cut gets announced that it's going to be going up on there. Hype gets real. They're
Right.
like, "Oh shit." And then they see the date. Hype goes right the fuck back down. If you've already got these streaming services up, why don't you take a little bit more time, announce your plans to remove the ones that HBO Max would very easily replace,
Mm-hmm.
and then release and leave them up until the Snyder cut is ready to come out. Release your streaming program, then release HBO Max around that time. Until that point, you are bolstering what you have on the existing platforms already. So people are like, okay, yes,
Sure.
this is awesome. This is all going to still be here when HBO Max comes out, and you want me to move over to that? Cool, absolutely,
Sure.
because I don't want to lose any of this stuff.
Lock down your license for the ones that
Absolutely,
aren't currently there. Take a year to do that. I mean, I agree with that, but I also feel like this is why they chose HBO Max, because we were going back and forth with why. Because originally it was going to be Warner Brothers Media something, because that's what it is. That's what it
yep,
really is. It's really nothing to do with HBO. They chose HBO because it was a recognizable brand that they already had out there instead of putting out a new brand. But
I just feel
my
this
theory
is just
now
reckless.
is I feel like my theory now is they did it as an excuse so they can be like, well, just like HBO Go and HBO Now, things come off this all the time, and HBO Max isn't going to be a
Yeah,
difference. And if this had been Warner Brothers Media, people would have been like, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. And some people might be like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense because HBO Now does that all the time. That doesn't excuse it. I think it's really dumb, and especially not even a month. Like, could you imagine if Disney Plus lost all of its Marvel movies like a month in?
uh, I wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't
It's
have it.
so, it's so
I,
crazy.
I would have
So
canceled right
crazy.
after, as soon as I was done with Mandalorian. I would have canceled, like
Not
without
to
question.
mention, and to Jeffrey's credit, not only is it are you dropping this, but you use those many of those titles as your selling point.
Yeah,
It was prominent on their opening screen. DC movies, and all these movies were right there. And now all of them are going, save for a couple animated titles. That's crazy. That's so crazy. You
That's
can't
why
watch
I think
one Batman movie on there that's not animated. That's bizarre to me.
that's what I'm saying. They should have waited. They
Yeah.
absolutely should have waited. Like it's not like you guys are starving for money. Like I get the
Right.
coronavirus knocked some stuff down there, but you're not in such bad shape there where you wouldn't have had the chance to hold back on this release,
Yeah.
make it like bolster like really lock down your audience because first of all, HBO has stuff that the other platforms don't have
They do.
very frequently. A lot of the time they're getting stuff faster than anybody else because they still have that relationship to where normally I'm seeing new releases on my HBO channel subscription before anywhere else.
Yeah.
So
Not to
they've already,
mention they have high quality original
yeah,
content. I mean, HBO
the
is still
without
like the
that's
standard.
that's not even touching on their history of having Game of Thrones, Westworld,
The
Euphoria,
Wire,
which is supposedly doing okay, The Wire, um,
hmm
and they've got other and like I'm sure that they're going to be coming
Watchmen,
with
The Outsider. They've had crazy
it.
amounts of hits lately.
It goes
Yeah,
on and on and on.
and I'm excited for Lovecraft Country. But yeah, it
They
just
should
seems
have just
crazy.
waited. Like I
Right.
think they got greedy, they got impatient, and now it's biting them in the ass.
So I agree with our first story about them. I agree with what they're doing with Game or with Gone with the Wind in the context of they're going to re-release it with without any edits, but with a disclaimer. But yeah, as far as this story, I think it's a dumb move. I think it's a bad move. Why do I keep going back to the General Lee? But yeah, so we've done all of our starter stories. We need to get to the main story, which is the first arc of season 7, the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch arc. You
And
finally
oh
watched it.
boy, you have been waiting for me for
Oh,
a
so long.
while.
So long. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I the other day I was like it was already kind of late. I had just finished up a bunch of editing and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna pop in the first episode real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was about this particular about this episode, but I got hooked in really hard. Um
There's the first one, yeah.
yeah, yeah, just the first episode in the first arc, I'm like, you know what? The Bad Batch. You know what? I love it. First of all, I had already seen the trailer about the Bad Batch, so there was already some interest there.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw the first episode, and again, they're doing what they had been doing for the last several seasons, where they were devoting 3 or 4 episodes in a row to the same arc and giving us kind of like a mini movie just broken into multiple parts.
Quick,
Uh,
quick disclaimer before you go on anymore, since we're having an active participant night. Seth has only seen the first 4 episodes of season 7. So if
yeah,
you're going to comment, please don't comment anything past episode 4 of season 7.
and
Go ahead.
we are
I'm
going to
trying to
talk
protect you right
spoilers.
now.
We are going to talk spoilers for those first 4 episodes, but
Yes.
nothing further. So this
Right.
is a full discussion. If you haven't, like, man, this is the first time during this during our talks about Clone Wars where we've had to be like, hey, spoiler alert, because
Yeah. For
it's
anything
actually
current.
a relatively new season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, spoiler alert, you've been warned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what was so compelling about just the the Bad Batch, but man, I got hooked in right from the start. I was like, all right, this is interesting. And
Right.
it wasn't necessarily just the Bad Batch. It was that it was again like we've gone over this several times. The stories about the clones themselves is some of the better episodes actually
Oh
is when it's
yeah.
focusing on just the
Some
clone soldiers
great
themselves. And so now we've
great
got
character development for clones and
yeah,
it's like the reverse. It's like somebody was like, you have these guys that all look the same when they're in their uniforms, but we're going to actually make you recognize and feel and be invested in some of their stories, even though they're all supposed to be copies of themselves. We're going to prove to you that they're not, and they
yeah.
really did a good job doing that.
And so to have the episode start out with Rex believe like having this theory that Echo is alive because of the way that the enemy is reading their tactics and the
Hmm.
way that they're like I can't remember the planet name. Um Axios or no. I
um Oh
I,
gosh,
I
an
can't
axis. It's an anaxis, and it's
something
A N
yeah,
A X E X.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Um yeah, the fact that he thought that Echo was still alive, who died several seasons ago. Like we're talking some old news here.
Yeah.
And yeah, like they kicked it off exactly right. And they're like, you know what? We're gonna go in on this batshit crazy suicide mission, so we're gonna bring in some batshit crazy clones.
Right.
And
Clone Force 99.
a
Mm-hmm.
cup like the Bad Batch. And it was interesting that they had some that where they're like, we have some clones that have specific mutations. And obviously having a sharp, like some of them were kind of cliche. Well,
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of all of them were. Like they all had their
Sure.
own, they were all really like, I think Hunter was the only one who didn't have like an exact, didn't have like a very common uh
Yeah.
commando specialty or something like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
obviously you've got Wrecker, who's just the big guy. He wants to blow everything up. He's super strong. It's ridiculous. You've
Mm-hmm.
got Tech, who's their computer nerd.
Yeah.
Again, classic. Uh, and then Crosshair, who speaks for it. Do I even have to say? Like, completely explains it. But then you've
Mm-hmm.
got Hunter, who is sensing like electro. He was like he could sense electromagnetic energy or something like that. Like
Something like that. Yeah.
he had a sixth sense of some kind that had a lot to do with like the level of technology that they were dealing with. That was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. That
Mm-hmm.
was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm kind of sad that we didn't like really see him tap into that more than he did, because that was like the interesting ability and it was like the least used. Um, like he did the least amount of tracking for a hunter that I've seen out of any show. But
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it was the live action movies need to learn from these episodes. Yeah, they
We've
do.
talked about this. We've said that
Cat,
the
are you kidding
development
me?
in these shows are great.
Get out of
Um, to regarding the Bad Batch and regarding kind of what you're saying about like the tropish, evolutions, and there's always a big guy and there's always a tech guy. Um, it kind of reminded me, yeah, we've seen that before with the newer versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. So at first I
Mm.
kind of like rolled my eyes. I was like, ugh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And then I was also rolling my eyes hard enough because I was like, man, I really miss Ahsoka. And you're gonna start me off with an arc that has nothing to do with Ahsoka. This better be fucking
Again,
amazing. Yeah.
again. It's like, so we
Again,
just
we
went
already
through
did
like
a
a
whole season with nothing. And who is the most prominent person in the trailer? Ahsoka. And we're not going to start the season off with Ahsoka, so you better make it good. And it was a compelling story. I know a lot of people dogged on it, but I really did like it.
dude, it was so neat that they do end up actually finding Echo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we got to see some translation tech that they had, which before that, anytime that we actually needed any real translation, it was always 3PO
Right.
doing the translations for people.
Right.
Or for some reason, I guess just every citizen in Star Wars is multilingual, which I mean, given the circumstances that they live in, makes sense to a degree.
To a degree.
Um, but yeah, it was it was super interesting to see just kind of like what they were going to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find Echo, who is alive and is being used to control droid strategies against the clones. And what was even more fucked up is that he was doing it and he still had his conscience. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was consciously aware that he was doing some of this stuff, and so he had memory and recollection of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, don't tell me if we see him again later, but I think it would be really cool to see him again later, um, with the Bad Batch, because he ends up joining them, which was like that was my well up moment.
Yeah, that was really cool. And
Um,
I was glad because we've seen some people who are just like, hey, a deformed clone or a damaged clone, we should just put him down. And I was
or make
glad,
him the janitor.
yeah, I mean, at least with
Dick Moon.
99, they kept him around though, and 99 had his moment to shine, like he did die a hero, So it was just cool again to see like this is going to be an outcast. We had people wondering if he was a traitor or if he was a spy, and
I
the
mean,
right
and that is a
people stuck
completely
behind him,
legit worry, because like his
right?
brain
Because
had
he
been
was hooked
completely
up.
taken over and reprogrammed. Like,
This dude like had turned him into a tool. I mean,
Which was
And
another nod because
yeah,
like we had talked about how the banking clan got some representation after like the only time that we had seen them was in episode 2. And
right.
now we're seeing the Techno Union, which was another group, which it was weird that they were like trying to push their neutrality.
Hmm.
And this one that the Techno Union was staying there when we literally saw them in there with Dooku and the separatists signing the treaty with with all of them.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was the same character from Clone Wars the film, the
Yeah,
episodic film.
right.
Uh, but yeah, it was the there were a lot of cool moments, especially that the fact that he had like a droid probe arm that he was using to like hack shit and stuff like that. It was
Hmm.
really like it kind of was like steering in the direction that he does kind of belong with that group.
Yeah.
Because he's not a reg anymore. Like he's definitely modified. But the moment that got me to well up, it was right at like Rex tells him, was like, hey, I think like we've been through a lot together, but if that's the group that you feel like you belong with, you should stick with them.
Which is a
And
big thing because Rex at the beginning of this arc was the only one that believed he could be alive and the
yeah,
only one
who
willing to
trusted
go
him.
do this. Like nobody, everybody else was just like, okay, even on the off chance he's alive, it's not worth forming a mission around. And Rex was like, it is, and he went and got him, and he had faith in him all this time. And then yeah, at the end to be like, I'm not going to be selfish and make you hang around with me because we used to be buds. If you need to go with this group, yeah, you should. It was a really good moment.
Well, it was actually the so Rex starts walking away and he realizes that Echo went back with them. They turn around, they salute each other.
Hmm.
That was the
Hmm.
moment for me. Like the entire and then the entire 99 decided to do so, which was like it was just like, oh my god, I'm gonna start crying. like I almost started welling up. I'm like, fuck, man, like the clones just made me feel again.
Hmm.
I
Well,
it was
from the
it's
beginning though, was what was interesting about this was that for those people that were like, man, why did they have to have this? Why couldn't we just go straight into Ahsoka? Because that's what everybody wanted. This wasn't just filler. This show is called the Clone Wars, so we should have some clone specific storylines, even in this final season.
well, especially at this point, like we've
Right.
grown with these characters for so long now. Like
Right.
to have like the final season not revolve anything around them would be an extreme disservice.
I mean, if you think it would be terrible to not have Anakin in this season, then likewise with Rex, he should be in there.
Rex
And
fives, like
right.
specifically those two, Cody.
And it wasn't filler. Like it was a good part of the plot and
Yeah.
relevant to the story. And not to mention, this has always been planned to be part of the seventh season. This arc began production in 2012. Like, this was not something they just came up with last year to be like, oh, we're going to pad this season out. This was written as part of the seventh season in 2012. The Bad Batch arc was came from George Lucas himself, who wanted to explore this idea of the Bad Batch and enhanced skills and mutations and everything. They were working on this. They even have footage from the original story reel version, and this was all in the works in 2012 and 2013 before season 7 was canceled. So, you know, I think it's I think it's awesome that they were like, we're not just going to throw that away. If a season 7's coming, we're going to revisit that and make it a reality. That's always been the plan. I doubt that the rest of this season was always a part of their plan. I think that's been adapted. But it was cool to see that this was something from 8 years ago that they ended up keeping, and making a reality.
It was also interesting to see that Rex is fully aware of Anakin's relationship with Padme,
I know,
and he was helping cover for him,
but
doing a horrible job of it at the same time as far as Obi-Wan was concerned. But uh,
but then Obi-Wan had that comment at the end, so I can't. It makes me want to go back and watch Revenge of the Sith because was there ever a moment where he was like, "You've been sleeping with her"? Like that is That is 100% against our code. How dare you? We're not supposed to have relationships. Did they ever get that deep into it?
So there's one particular line just as after Anakin has turned and Obi-Wan knew and finds out about it, where he tells Padme about the younglings
Mhm.
that Anakin killed and what all has happened. And as he's leaving, as Obi-Wan is leaving, he turns and he looks at her. He says, "Anakin's the father, isn't he?" And she doesn't say anything to him. He just says, "I'm so sorry," and he goes away. Um, I think that was. I think personally that it wasn't fully. There might be another delete. There might be deleted scenes somewhere where they addressed it further, but that's my only real reference to it. But given how well Obi-Wan knew Anakin, how well he knew Anakin and Padme's relationship, uh, I think it wasn't a surprise to Obi-Wan whatsoever at any point in time. His feelings about Padme, as far as knowing about them being married or knowing about like the extent of their relationship, I'm not sure.
Well, the
But
marriage was always a secret, but I mean, at this point, even in this hologram here for episode 2, Padme was having a harder time hiding the fact that she was pregnant, which I'm surprised wasn't a bigger controversy, like a senator that's pregnant but that's not married. Interesting. But at
yeah,
the end of that scene where they were having this call, yeah, Kenobi was like, "Did you at least say
I
hi to
hope you said
Padme
hi
for
to
me?"
Padme.
Or so I feel like
There
he
was
probably
another
knew that they were dating and just decided that that wasn't something he was gonna die on the hill for,
there was
trying to
another
argue against it.
reference that kind of like I think that was another big part of why they included Obi-Wan's relationship with Satine in the previous seasons. Um,
Right, to
to
show
kind
that
of give
he went down that path or
he
almost
went
went
down
down
that
that path
path
as
and he
well.
understood.
He might be a
Um,
little more open to it or sympathetic to it, yeah.
but as we've seen, Obi-Wan is also going to be biased towards anything as far as surrounding Anakin because he has such a close relationship with him.
Yeah, he's been with
Uh,
Anakin since he was a kid, so of
yeah,
course he's gonna
yeah,
be
he's
more forgiving and father figure-ish
and he also is training Anakin again. We got to remember as a promise to his former master, who he had the same relationship with.
yeah,
He grew up with Qui-Gon.
yeah.
So absolutely, that's gonna make things even more important to him. And Obi-Wan became his trainer at a pretty young age as well. So
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
speaking of Obi-Wan, he had a lot of involvement in this arc. Well, at least in this fourth episode, as you're showing here.
mhm.
We got to see him and Mace Windu kick some more ass.
And that was a great scene. That
Yeah, it
whole
was.
scene where they're rappelling down and they're kicking ass and then the rest of them are coming in. That was a shot in the trailer where there was like some smoke. I don't remember if it was smoke grenades or something like that, but it zoomed in and just the expression on his face and the smoke coming off the lightsaber. I mean, I have always said that I'm amazed at how well these episodes held up as far as the look, and everything. Like just going back to the first two seasons, they still look amazing. But the the graphics in season 7 are astounding. I mean, when they zoomed in, you could see wrinkles on
Yeah,
Obi-Wan's face. I want to see if I can pull up that picture from the trailer because I was just like, this looks amazing. Like it's crazy to me. I
I
loved
love
it.
the amount. I love like because it's also subtle.
Hmm.
Like they didn't they didn't upgrade the look so much to where it looks completely unnatural to the rest of the seasons.
Right.
Like they gave it the update that it needs, but they kept it so within the same style to where it's
Hmm.
almost a seamless transition, but like it is noticeable.
It's
Um,
noticeable, but if you were watching it like I was, like just binging the shit out of it, then it felt natural, like a person ages. Like it
yeah,
wasn't like season 3 to season 4 drastic difference, which would have been jarring. It did feel very very natural.
yeah. Anakin's look is a lot closer to like his hairstyle looks very much identical to the look that he had in Revenge of the Sith.
Hmm.
So they're matching up with that a little bit more because um, I have to imagine that at this point in the series that Revenge of the Sith is right around the corner.
Oh, it's yeah. This is
Just
no
with just
longer
with the
like
look.
this is so damn close. Yeah.
Okay,
It's not it's not like, oh, that's still a year away or something like this. No, it's
Well,
like,
when I saw the way that they had changed Anakin's look, I was like, okay, it's his turn is right around the corner. Uh,
hmm
so I'm expecting future episodes to kind of like again, really emphasize his turn.
yeah.
Because again, like I said, the prequels didn't really do a fair enough job of it.
This shot right here. Um,
I
I'm gonna
can't see it.
I'm gonna pull it over here.
There you go.
This shot right here. Can you see it now? Is it
Yeah,
is it coming up? I
yeah,
love this shot. Like
fierce.
just the smoke coming off and oh just he's just like what's going on here? Oh my gosh, it was such a good shot in the trailer. And when that came in the episode, I was just like, yes, because it was an intense scene. Oh, and they had the spider dude back. Um,
Yep.
and and his fate was interesting. That showed a little bit of Anakin's rage,
Yeah, yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
I love that. That's always kind of like my favorite concept that they have to toy with is because Anakin has a lot of the same feelings about the Jedi rules that we as the audience do.
Yeah,
Um, so like he's a bit of an audience character as far as that's concerned because it's hard for us to imagine living a life where you're not allowed to make any connections with people, falling in love with someone, wanting to be married, of course, like
right,
that just comes as a natural thought to us.
right.
Facing down an enemy who has been killing, like a war criminal in your eyes as far as it's concerned, and
hmm
then being like, all right, I've apprehended you, we're going to take you to the court system after seeing how it doesn't really work.
Right, right.
Like, yeah, why wouldn't you just kill him off? Like, so to see them continue to play with that, like, be like, yeah, this turn makes perfect sense. And then having all these justifications. So when Palpatine finally does turn him, he's not really
hmm
turning Anakin. Anakin was
It's
already
easier,
he was already 1 foot off of the cliff.
but it
Palpatine just
doesn't
gave him that
contradict.
last little push.
Right. To those that would say, well, then why did he hesitate on killing Dooku in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, which is still after these episodes? To that point, Anakin has never been worried about killing people in war, and in this scene, it was war, and he was killing them before uh, Obi-Wan and Mace Windu died. So that was still in the context of war, and they
Yep.
weren't on their knees and defenseless. Whereas
Without
Dooku
hands.
was, and Dooku was just like looking at his master like, did you really just ask him to kill me? And Anakin, paused a little bit there. So I don't
Do
think
it.
this contradicts with that character. I just think at that moment, even Anakin was like, well, there is a difference. But he still decided to move forward with it. So
Well, and it was still a struggle for him because like the
yeah,
Jedi way is the only thing that he's known all of his life now. Like
right.
and so like yeah, of course
But
he
this
didn't want to
always
go up
goes back.
against that, but at the
It
same
goes
time like it was sort of one of those situations where also like they had the blowing up of the ship to deal with, like he had to get
right,
Obi-Wan and shit out of there. So he's like, yeah, no, I don't know that
right.
I can really deal with this. So his
But
brain
it
was in a
harkens
scramble at
back.
that time.
It just continues to amplify the conversation we've been having again and again and again, where we've agreed with who's Vader's favorite General Tarkin, when
Tarkin.
he was just like, a Jedi should not be a part of the war, because if you're supposed to be
Exactly.
peacekeepers and the Force is not supposed to be weaponized, why are you generals? Because why do you not expect that to corrupt your people? Somehow it has not corrupted Obi-Wan. And Mace Windu had his issues, especially when it came to uh, uh, Jango Fett and everything. But it clearly has corrupted Anakin, because it's not like he went in there like smiling as he killed the dude, but he's killed a lot of people, and he wasn't smiling, but he was definitely frowning, and he was pissed. And that is just as bad. Like any emotion for a Jedi is supposed to be dangerous, but then making them a general in a war, and weaponizing what wasn't supposed to be weaponized, I just don't understand why they didn't see this as an inevitable outcome for somebody within their ranks.
So there's an interesting quote from Fallen Order,
Hmm.
which my latest episode is actually the next episode that comes out is actually going to include it.
Oh, good.
Um, Now I'm not gonna say the quote because I don't want to spoil it for you if you decide to watch the series, because I know you
No.
haven't played the game and I know you
I need
really
to
want
hurry up
to.
and do that. I feel like
Um,
see, this is what you need to be mad at me about is for taking my
yeah, a
time.
little bit. See, like
I know. I need
some
to get a
video game,
gaming computer or something. Yeah,
some video games I won't give you any shit on, but this one, like
I
you
know.
either need to play it or see the story.
I can't be a
Um,
nerf herder and not play a Star Wars
you need
game.
to experience Fallen Order, but there's a character in there who challenges our main character
Hmm.
about the Jedi Order and how they were kind of they were trapped in an endless war, which
Hmm.
is what the Clone Wars really felt like. They were blinded by their past glories, so they considered themselves to be on the moral high ground. Obi
Hmm.
Wan, and that that really clouded a lot of their judgments already. And then you've also got this a massive amount of manipulation from the dark side, which Yoda addresses in the series as well. So that the
Right.
dark side clouds so many things right now, and he could feel that evil growing.
Yeah.
Um, and so like with them being in wartime, there were a lot of things that were slipping through the cracks. Who was the what was the four-armed dickhead from a few episodes ago?
Oh,
Uh,
the General Krell,
yeah,
General Krell.
General Krell. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Karn. I don't know why. But yeah, Krell, like he slipped through their fingers too. Like he was gonna move over to the dark side as well. Like he was gonna join with Dooku, and like
Well,
they gave him his own battalion. Like they
he
like
wasn't, but again, what I liked about Krell was he just became corrupt. Like it wasn't really that like he was suddenly a disciple of the dark side. It was just like he just didn't care anymore, and he cer- and he embraced that superiority that Jedi are not supposed to embrace. But when they're given a temple in the middle of a city and they're just granted these commander and general leadership positions, it is just it's just logical that it would go to some of their heads, you know. So even the
I
best
think
of them.
the main reason that the council didn't pick up on that stuff is because they were so focused on the war effort that they should not have been involved in the first place. It was
Right.
if you if we had a war here in the States and it was overseas, it wasn't it wasn't here. You're not going to send the cops. That's who that's to some degree that's who the Jedi actually are. Is they are a peacekeeping force.
Right. And
Um,
while the war is all we've known as viewers, it it is a fairly new thing for the Jedi. I mean, the Jedi had existed for
this particular
millennia.
war, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. Oh, I don't mean war in general, but you
sure.
know, all we've known about about Star Wars has been this particular war. It's not like this was a forever war. You know, this was in this context was still something that the Jedi was newer becoming a part of. You know, it wasn't like their whole existence has always been about this. So, yeah, I get it. You know, I mean, they're not perfect beings, and you know, but it was interesting, and again, that's why the writing is so great because you do like you sympathize, you find yourself sympathizing with Anakin, you find yourself agreeing with Tarkin at times, and that's just that's good. That's how you write compelling characters. You know, they're not black and white, and they're not that easy to break down.
We've said it before, and we'll probably say it again that the Clone Wars series is justifying the prequels.
Very much.
It is very much filling in those gray areas that we we felt like we didn't get. And
Right.
I am super excited to get back from vacation so I can finish this
I
series.
bet you are. But
Um,
as I mean,
because
at least you were
I
able to
saw
watch
like
the first arc. So,
I saw the first couple seconds the next of the first episode of the next arc with Ahsoka.
oh, So you
Um,
know it has Ahsoka in it, so you don't have to wait any much longer for that.
yeah, well, as soon as like the preview screen came up for the
Mm,
next episode, it was just a
right.
big shot of Ahsoka's face. I'm like, oh, okay, she's in this one now. Thank fuck for that because like we've been missing her for a little bit now.
Yeah.
Uh,
But you're pretty satisfied with the start of the seventh season then?
Absolutely.
Me
I'm
too.
not gonna jump. I'm not gonna jump on that bandwagon of them being upset that the clones got their own arc because like the clones are characters that I have grown with throughout this
Mhm.
series.
It was a small bandwagon to be fair, and I think it
Yeah,
was
I
just
can't imagine it was
initial.
huge.
It was just initial when it started because everybody was excited. But as it progressed, people started recognizing that this was actually a pretty compelling story. There's a bigger bandwagon that we'll discuss in our next episode that definitely trumped this one. Like people forgot that people were like, "Oh, well, this is amazing compared to this." So
Okay.
we'll discuss that when you get back from vacation for sure.
Oh boy.
Just don't watch it on vacation because I don't want anything bad to be about your vacation.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, giving me something to look forward to. Thanks.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
No. Yeah. As far as while I'm gone, like I said, I'm not gonna watch any content or anything like that. I'm gonna stay away from technology as much as I can, except for editing and posting some of the photos that I take.
Mhm.
But I have the final 2 episodes of my Fallen Order playthrough are going to go up while I'm gone.
Good.
Uh, so I've got the finale episode. I'm gonna record it as soon as we're done here. Um, and it's gonna go through to the end. It's gonna go through the end of the playthrough, and my playthrough commentary for Jedi Fallen Order will finally end. So that'll be while I'm gone.
Okay.
So if you want to do what you've been doing, where you're just gonna binge through the storyline, it'll be available to you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because
With
I've tried.
with Seth Jones commentary.
Uh, I don't talk. I try really hard not to talk through like the actual story elements. I comment them after. So most of
Mhm.
my talking is during the gameplay,
Mhm.
um, to try and like keep the story elements like
Right. Right.
safe. Like allow. Um, the I don't know. I'm really proud of the series. It's not performing super well as far as our channel is concerned, but I really don't care because I'm having such a good time.
Mhm.
First of all, like I've experienced the game several times already, and I'm super happy just to be doing it again because it is that good of a story.
Good.
It's got its
Good.
holes, and I do kind of poke at some of them
Mhm.
throughout the game, but still, like I mean, what piece of Star Wars content doesn't?
Right.
Um, but they did such a good job. I'm really happy to wrap that one up and then kind of like start thinking about what my next video series is going to be.
Okay.
So what I'll start working on after that. So
Mhm.
I'll probably be thinking about that on the several 100 miles. Well, actually, I'm going to cover about 2,000 miles of ground on this vacation. So
Wow.
I'm gonna have a lot of drive time to be lost in my thoughts.
Just don't get too lost.
Oh yeah, don't get too lost.
Reserve some of your focus for the road.
Keep some battery for that
Mhm.
Google Maps.
Well,
Um,
while you're gone, I'm going to try to record at least one episode of the Nap next week with special guest Allie Roby. She is a good friend of mine, good movie buff. We're actually going to record an episode of My Friend Showed Me, and it's going to be on The
nice.
Matrix, which she is responsible for putting that movie in my life. So we're going to record that. That'll be a tester to see if she's currently out in the country, like deep, deep country. And the first time we tried doing something a while back, didn't really work. So we're gonna do a tester for My Friend Showed Me, and if that works well, then we'll do the live nap with her as well. And
Nice.
then I also hope to release an episode of I Don't Know Anime on Gantz. I have been having such a hard time with Gantz. A lot of people, it's been on their list. I'm not going to spoil what I'm going to say about Gantz, but I really want to put it out there. But there is so much footage I can't use, like just so much in terms of nudity and in terms of language. And a big portion of those videos are my reaction to it. And part of me at this point is just thinking of not having that and just having some visual images while I talk about it. and I might end up having to do that. But I do want to put out something on Gantz because I do want to talk about it, and a lot of people have wanted me to talk about it. So
I think some of the reviews that we do for some of the content that we plan to cover, we're probably going to have to do it that way just because of the content that's in it. So
for sure,
so
and
yeah, that's
maybe that's just what I have to do. But I recorded it while I was watching it, so I feel like I don't want to like lose that footage, but it's just the case. It's a very R-rated content, and that's just
well,
how it
maybe
is. So.
maybe just keep the audio during the nudity bits and um do what you
Even the
can about the
audio,
language.
though, the language is the dub, which is interesting because I actually had the subs on it, and the subs and the dubs are so different. Like the subs, if you're just watching it and listening to it, and watching the American subs, there's like nothing filthy in the subs. As soon as you turn the dub version on, it is like over the top filthy, both in context and in language, and it's just like wow, I don't know if they took liberties or if the subs were just drowned down that much, and the original language was also filthy. So I don't know what the story is behind that, but
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that with the language to kind of like appeal to Americans because I feel
yeah,
like there's not a whole lot of that in a lot of anime that I've seen.
yeah, probably. But hopefully I can get that up next week, so we can have content to the channel. But
All
I
right.
plan on at least one nap episode while you're gone.
Well, good deal. I will be back next weekend, and I don't know. I'll be starting to work on something. If there is a game or a series that you nerf herders would like me to cover, if you've been following, first of all, if you've been following the Fallen Order commentary, thank you. I love you. If there's another piece of content that you'd like me to commentate over, definitely let me know. I'm I'm having a lot of fun with these games. There's some Witcher games that I haven't played, which I'm sure will be.
Ooh, I have The Witcher 3 on Switch,
Yeah,
so
I've got it on PC. I still haven't touched it. Um,
neither have I. So maybe we could do
there's a
that.
there's a there's a couple there's a lot of games in my Steam library that would be considered classics that I still haven't touched. So
Got it.
that could probably be a thing. This is my because I don't know for some reason late first times are really trending right now. So um,
Okay, can I just say that before we exit this out, this has been pissing me the fuck off because when I put out these I don't know anime videos and I say this is the first time I've seen it, it really is the first time I've seen it. I know I'm not a cute little sexy girl, but there are tons of Instagram looking chicks out there putting out first time watching Star Wars, and yet they know the scene before it happens. Like, I get it. It's really hard to not know the I am your father scene in today's world. But when I've just tested out a couple that I'm like, I don't believe you. That meme of Ron Burgundy saying, I don't believe you. And I'll watch some of their commentary and they'll know everything before it happens. So just don't lie. It's fine if you want to do a commentary or revisit. But when you're saying first time, it means you have not seen it. And if you have seen it, then it's not a first time. But yeah,
you know,
YouTube has been flooded with first timers. Some of them are legit. Most of them, especially the ones that look like models, are not legit. And it's ticking me off.
well, that's the state of YouTube in a nutshell, really. Is
Sure.
something will start up, it'll be trendy, and then people have to get on that train whether they can really replicate it or not. So
I
it's not
will give
terribly
a shout
shocking.
out though. There has been one first watch guy that what is the term ASMR? Do you know what that is?
I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it is essentially it's audio stimulation something.
Yeah.
It's like it's a series of sounds that'll kind of like give your brain a tingly reaction.
Right. And I don't know what it stands for either, but that is the gist of it.
I
So
think it's
there's this guy.
auditory stimulation of something,
Mhm.
something.
Okay, well there's this guy, and he doesn't do this on purpose, but it's a newer channel called Brandon Likes Movies, and he has the most monotone soft voice that you have ever heard. And I remember the film, it was accidentally playing on my phone the other day. And even my wife was like, is that like a bit? Or like, is that just how he talks? Because it's the same. And it's like the most calming voice. And he's been doing reactions and he'll be honest with it. Either he has seen it, and this is just a revisit because his Patreon members have asked him to do it, or this is a true beginning first time watch for him. But he's one that I've actually been following a lot, and I
So
appreciate it.
so ASMR, autonomous sensory meridian response.
Okay. Well, if you
So
want to combine that with
I was
first time
completely wrong.
watches, watch Brandon. Brandon likes movies. That's he's a fun channel. But most of them, you can just tell in the first 2 minutes whether or not it's a trick or whether they've actually never seen the
Well,
show.
and some of the time they're picking like super popular movies to where it's like, really?
Yeah, like really, have you been living under a rock? You
Like
know?
you hadn't seen it ever until just now when this stuff is all trendy.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, and I
Uh,
get it. This is the thing to do, and this is what everybody loves watching. I love watching. I'm subscribed to at least three reactor channels. But again, I can tell when a person is being genuine and saying they've never actually seen it,
oh,
and then I
everybody
can
can.
you can see it on their face.
Everybody can
Not
tell.
even not even what their words are saying. You can see it on their face if they are expecting something to happen, or if they've really never seen the show. And then of course, the ones that have never seen something always have the exact scenes that you're waiting for them, because they're not going to show the whole movie. But you're like, oh, I really hope they react to that scene. They have every one of those scenes in there to not miss a beat. So
Of course.
it's annoying me so much. But yeah, you're right. That is YouTube right now. So I don't hate the
Uh,
player, I guess. But yeah.
Before I go, I'm gonna reveal something I found on Amazon that I was really happy I was able to find.
Mm, little Peter Parker.
Even dead, I'm the hero. So yeah, that'll be the we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up now. But yeah, this will be the last nap with me in it, at least until next week.
Mhm.
And I'll have my Fallen Order commentary series will release, and I'll have those final 2 episodes out this coming week. You've got more content that you're going to be bringing along the way, and yeah, that'll about wrap this episode up. We'll have more Clone Wars reviews after I get back as well. Maybe all of them at the same time. Who knows?
Yeah,
um,
maybe.
I might binge just that hard because I will have been without technology for like 9 days at that point in time. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, until then, oh jeez, I just beat the hell out of that mic. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and let
Mhm.
us know if you were into this episode. Hit the dislike button if you didn't like it. Be honest, we can take it. Leave us a comment down below, talking like just in response to anything that we talked about. How did you
Mhm.
feel about the recent episodes or season of Clone Wars without spoiling anything?
Yep.
Hit the
Please don't
subscribe
spoil
button.
it for Seth. Please,
Yeah,
please, dear
hit the
God, don't do
subscribe
it.
button if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on the future videos that we've got coming out, especially when we go live. Because if you're not here now, that's how we actually air these podcasts. We do these live.
Yep.
So until then, be a part of the conversation, and we'll see you guys later.
See ya.